From Journey with VRD, you're listening to the Visions, Missions, and Manifestations podcast, the number one place for spirituality, healing, and transcendence. I'm your host, Vivian Dayan. Now let's get into it. As many of you know, this past February, I spent 5 full days in Sedona, Arizona on a spiritual and transformational journey. I went ready for my ascension, my next level of life, and I was open to whatever trip Sedona took me on in order to reach my full potential. About a week before I left, I found today's podcast guest, Melissa Funk, who, when I got to Sedona, took me on a hypnosis journey into my past lives. The experience was unexpected, yet brought me healing, clarity, and gave me the exact medicine to ascend into the era I'm now in. Beyond the past life journey, Melissa taught me how to channel my ancestors using my voice and getting really comfortable in my own skin. At the end, we closed the experience with a cacao ceremony. Hi, how are you?
What a bomb intro. I love that.
So
I'm
happy to
doing
have you here.
same. It's so precious to see you. Yeah, my heart is like
Oh my goodness. It was like we really met in the most kismet way. I was looking for a spiritual experience in Sedona and I just found you online and it just was so perfect. Like you even were going away a couple days after I was there. So it was meant to be. I really believe that. But tell us a little bit about what you do.
yes. And just because I don't think I told you that, it was also very synchronistic for me because the way my sessions come in at this point is very synchronistic. Like it's rare that I just get a random person. Like the sessions are never random. So I was actually in the gym and I had one of the worst days of my life, honestly, when you texted me or called me. And I was literally like, okay, life, give me a little sign. Like I need some help here. And that was literally when your call came in. And it was just a beautiful to me sign of, hey, keep going. You got this, woman. You're good. Everything is good. And I heard your precious voice. And to me, I told you your birthday is the birthday of my teachers. Like the two most powerful teachers I had in my life shared the same birthday. So there was just this sense of synchronicity of like, hey, everything's beautiful. Like life got you. You got yourself, but everything's beautiful. So that was very precious to me too. So I knew that whatever that was, it would be special. And at this point, like I said, it's with all of my sessions. Nothing's ever random. But I thought I didn't share that with you. So I wanted you to know that there was a synchronicity on both ends. And when we do work like that, that goes that deep, we rearrange things on a level that we might not able to perceive. So us even coming together, right? Who are we for each other? What is our multidimensional connection? Right? This is the flesh suit, but we work on levels that are deeper than that. And maybe the purpose was just us bringing two consciousnesses or 2 points of consciousness together and exchange information for all of the layers of existence that we are. So this is, yeah, I love this work for that. And yeah, let me tell you a little bit about QHHT
Yes, please
because I
do.
know you you work in the quantum and you work on multidimensional levels as well. And I also know you have that connection to Dolores Cannon, right?
I do. And for the listener who might not know Dolores Cannon's work, feel free to explain, get into it.
Magical. And if you guys have Googled anything about star seeds, or if you watched any YouTube video about past lives or whatsoever, I think she's like the gatekeeper. She's like the initiation into the spiritual journey. She will pop up on your YouTube feed at some point in time. Like we've all seen this beautiful grandma on the side of our YouTube screen, like literally. And she feels like that. She feels like the gatekeeping grandma that's like, hey, child, I got you. Let me introduce you into your multidimensional existence. And she was placed there very like life well played. I always say that with Dolores Cannon. Like she was placed there so purposefully and so perfectly because she's just safety. And when you hear her story, she's a hypnotherapist and she discovered this in the, I think, 60s. Like she was one of the first people to work with hypnosis. She wasn't spiritual, but in the hypnosis session, past lives started to reveal themselves, starseed lineages started to reveal themselves. She created this whole like first wave, second wave, third wave. So we are helpers from other star systems or other existences coming here to help the ascension of the planet. So if you're interested in that, Google Dolores Cannon. She has plenty of books and it will take you down a rabbit hole. And that's basically just what happened. And she found me. She found me on this journey where I started to ask questions, and it was my initiation. That's over 6 years ago. And she just popped up on my YouTube feed. And what she spoke about was so raw, so real, because she's no bullshit, right? There wasn't any sense of, oh, I want to be famous. There was just like, here are my stories. I had thousands of sessions. This is what came through. And that was so powerful to me because I come from Germany, and we'll get into that little story of mine as well. But my German brain, I 7 years ago, I didn't know about the word manifestation. That wasn't in my consciousness. And Germany is very different. The US is quite open, I feel like, and the land of the US is also, I would say, more untouched. Like the German grid has a lot of trauma, and purposefully, I believe there were a lot of wars, a lot of depression on the land, so it's harder to connect to these higher states of consciousness in the middle of Europe. It's really hard and really dense, and once you get there, people will get it. So it's oftentimes hard to explain how free America really is. It's almost like the moment I got to the sacred land, my veil was lifted. And it's not that Germany or Europe isn't sacred, but it's purposefully dimmed, and purposefully dark portals were opened on that land through war to have people in some sort of a slumber. It's very intense. And so when I went to America, that lifted. And so that was kind of like my first initiation. And so Dolores Cannon was part of that first initiation. And I started to ask questions, and the way she presented it was just so unbiased because it was experiential. She's like, that's just what came through in the hypnosis sessions over and over again. And my logical brain couldn't deny that something's going on there. And yeah, that was the moment I decided I had to learn this hypnosis. And I went to Hawaii and I did the training with her daughter. And that was, yeah, one of the starts into that work. And it's a tool that I use up until today, but it's not all that I do.
What brought you from Germany to America?
Yeah. My first big synchronicity, I would say, it was 26 when I came here. So that's like about 6 years ago now. And it's literally, I was in a slumber. Like if I look back, yes, right, my heart, I was always real. I always had love. I had love for people, so much love for people. But anything beyond didn't exist. And all I was focused on was survival. Until I was 26, I didn't know anyone who made more than 2,000 euros a month, which is $2,000. It's not much. And it's different, right? Germany has a big middle class or lower middle class, but no one's really like self-made. That doesn't exist where I'm from, or at least not in my circles. It's either old money or it's you're a worker bee. And that's changing, of course, through Instagram, YouTube, all of the possibilities and the golden age of technology. But when I was in that time frame, I had no purpose, right? It was literally just like, yo, there's so much within, but I don't know what to do with that. And I was severely depressed. Like when your soul is just enslaved, you're depressed. And I studied marketing strategy just to be able, but still it's wild. It's still hard for me to like tune back in because it's very traumatizing time. But I'm like, I have to push through. I got to do something. Let's do marketing strategy, even though that wasn't my passion. But I'm like, I need to finish something. And I already started so many things and never finished them because I'm like, I can't see myself doing that for the rest of my life. Like, this isn't it. And so that was a really tough journey because everyone was just like, just start something and finish it. And that couldn't be further from the truth. It's like when you read a book and it's not for you, close that shit and stop reading it. You have one precious life. And sometimes the message is in the first chapter or in the first fucking like sentence. So don't waste your time with things. It's okay to stop things. But there was just something in me that said push through. And one of the reasons was there was a semester abroad. And that was kind of like my shining North Star of like, I have to move somewhere else. And I didn't know how else to just leave the country. Like I was scared. And so I went to Bangkok and I lived there for a year, and that was like liberating beyond words. And I remember I stood on top of this like skyscraper, and I looked down on the city and I'm like, there's no way I can go back to Germany. Like, I don't know what's in store for me. I don't know how to make it, but life, I cannot live like this. And it was not really that I know what I wanted. So I didn't manifest getting here by knowing what I wanted, but it was more so, I cannot take this other life. Please show me a different way. And I didn't have a connection to God, but I was just speaking to life. And the next day, I met this gorgeous French girl at like a little party. And we didn't even speak, but it was just like, Ria
The
recognize real,
energy.
right? It's like the energy. I'm like, I feel your vibe. Like, you're a real one. I like you. And she sat down next to me and she's like, girl, you got to come to LA. And I'm like, all right. So for me, it was just drunk talk, right? She had a drink. And I'm like, all right, all right. But she kept telling me that. And we didn't speak much. We just saw each other like 2 more times after that. We didn't speak much, but she was like, you have to come to LA. And when I left Bangkok, she kept emailing me. She's like, you got to move in with me. I'm going to LA. I'm living in West Hollywood. You have to move in. And that was the first time where I'm like, she was an angel for real. I prayed the day before, even then I didn't know it was a prayer, but I'm like, life, I cannot live like this. I don't know what to do, but I can't go back to Germany. And the next day, there she is, one of the most beautiful women I've ever met, like shining like bright, big energy. And she's like, you got to come to LA. And I just did it. I took all of my savings and I left and moved to LA. And from there on, my whole life changed because I was at a point like literally rock bottom. Like I came out of a relationship that broke me down like nothing ever before, like broke me to the core. And then LA was like this, whew, okay, Melissa, there's a new life waiting for you. And it was, yeah, that was one of the craziest turnarounds in my life.
Like you knew if you stayed in Germany, if you stayed in marketing, it would kill you. Literally, you would be sick. It
Yep.
would just not feel good. And you would stay in that autopilot that's so disconnected from self state where like you turn into a robot, like a busy bee, as you put it, and you would never be able to have a purpose because there was no purpose for you in marketing. And I find that that quality in you that I see in me is what makes people be like, but how did you do it? And it was like this innate feeling, like in the gut, in the soul, that is like, no, you cannot stay here. And I love too that you were in a place when you were in Bangkok to fully trust whatever life put your way. You literally, like, some people would question it, like, ooh, is it safe for me to do this? Is it like I'm moving to a totally another country? How am I going to make it? What if I don't make the money? Like all the scarcity might come up. You were just like in full trust, in full flow with the universe because the alternative was a life that you would have died from so unhappy. So that's amazing. And I love that you even brought up like your rock bottom. Like there was a relationship that tore you because I always find that the rock bottom is the initiator. It's like the invitation because it's the best invitation because if you can't say no. No is like you can't go any further from the ground. Okay, you want to stay in this shitty feeling for longer. So when you're in a rock bottom, you're like even like moving to a new country, not knowing how I'm going to make it, all these other things, it's a yes because it's better than where I am. So it allows you to trust more. Wow, so interesting. And how long did you stay in LA till you had your first spiritual experience?
I love the rock bottom part. That's also why I love to work with people who are at rock bottom. It might feel like the shittiest moment of your life, but trust me, it's the best part. Like you're further down the path than you think. because people who haven't reached rock bottom, they're scared, they're not willing to change. So I love it when people have hit that stage of everything was a spiritual experience the moment I went to LA, because I hit another rock bottom. Because now I was there, and LA sounds glamorous, but if you've been there, you know it's a shit show. Like, yes, there are great experiences, right? And I lived right off Sunset, and she was kind of like she wasn't a promoter, but she was basically like getting pretty girls to go into clubs, and that was part of her lifestyle. So I would do this whole thing with her, and I'm like, yo, that isn't me. I feel so lonely here. I feel so unseen here. Literally everyone is judging you by the way you look, and that's not who I am. I'm a tomboy at heart. I'm real. And that was just like, I can't do this. So I was falling apart. I was crumbling. And all I did was, okay, I got to work out. I have to maintain. I have to somehow like get through this, because I went to LA with literally no expectations. But when I was there, I'm like, this is horrible. And I lived more life in these 3 months than in like 10 years. So it was a great experience. I met incredible people, but it was also like a wake-up call of, okay, if I'm going to stay here, what is my purpose here? What am I going to do? How am I going to make it here? And of course, there was always like this lingering feeling of, well, you could become a sugar babe, right? It's like really weird how LA sucks you in, because that wasn't me, but it's so normalized there. So that was always kind of like, oh, you could, right? And if there's a like dudes in Rolls Royce pulling up and offering you to help you to make a living, right? There's a thought that was always like, oh, I could. And I'm like, no, but that isn't my heart. That isn't me. I can't do that shit. And I was just pushing through, and I met someone that changed my life forever. He is a shaman in 13th generation, and I wasn't spiritual at that point. But our work together and how he literally shifted physical reality in an instant, I I couldn't wrap my head around it. Like I wasn't into manifestation. It wasn't like I wanted to believe it. I didn't know anything about it. I saw this person perform miracles in front of me that I just could not explain. So my German brain went into, how is that possible? Like, how did this person just totally shift reality? Like, literally. There are many examples I could give, but I went into, okay, I want to understand what is quantum? How does that work? What is our reality even made of? Like, how is it possible that someone shifted reality to such a degree? And I went down this rabbit hole of trying to understand that from a quantum physics perspective. And that was my path. And then there was an activation. Like, I had an immense womb activation, and I didn't know what that was at that time. I just knew that somehow there was a Kundalini awakening. Now I have the words for it. Back then I didn't have that. Back then I thought I had a seizure or something, like what the F is going on. Now I know my field was activating, my chakras were activating. Didn't have that word before. And so I just couldn't sleep anymore. I was just so obsessed. I worked, I then started an internship. I worked 10 hours a day. I would come home, start to astral project, right? Like, try to like get an idea of these different dimensions. And it was very like heady. It was very mental at first.
Yeah.
But then later on, through my voice, right? My voice connected me back to my womb. I'm an emotional generator, so all of my things basically happen in my lower chakras. Like, I'm a very like grounded person. So I came back to trust. Like, when I didn't need any more evidence that God existed, that universe is miraculous, I just came back to my knowing. And at first that was a long time. That took me 3-4 years, and still in the making, to own my gifts. And I don't need any more validation. I know that this life is miraculous. I trust everything that comes through, because I know how it feels when I speak truth. I know how my body feels when truth comes through me. And that is the superpower or gift that I'm working with. You could call it clear gnosis, right? It's not that I see, but I do see by knowing. It's just an innate knowing. And once you know yourself like that, it becomes easy to own that gift. but it was a long path. I gave my power away plenty of times, right? I looked at this person, for example, like a guru, but I didn't know that I had that within. I didn't know my field actually created this, not his field, but mine. But at first, right, I was like this humble slave student that is like, please teach me, master. And literally every person that walked by, I would look at them like they're above me, like a guru. And it took me a while to get rid of that habit, but it was purposeful.
Yeah, I mean, look at where you are now. I want to talk a little bit more about your voice and how that became a clear channel for you to channel and
Mhm.
how you were able to connect with your spirit guides through there and what the first time was like when you channeled your ancestors and your guides.
With spirit guides, like I was so obsessed, right? In the first parts of my journey, the first years, I was like, I want to see my spirit guides. And the only thing that ever really came through was my spirit animal. Like the first time I was like, I'm going to lucid dream. I really want to experience that. All I saw was a bear. And I was like, that was a little miracle for me because I'm like, wait, it actually happened. Like I saw something. And the bear is the teacher. Like it stands for the teachings, and it's been a spirit animal of mine ever since. But I was so like, I want to see my spirit guides. I want to hear my spirit guides, because like I knew so many people, not many people, but a few people that could actually communicate with their spirit guides, that would hear them. And I'm like, I want that. I want that. And it never showed up that way for me. So I know for you it's very clear, and I know you even see through the dimensions the way you can perceive things with technicality. And like I call you a light code engineer. Like it's powerful. And so this, you'll speak about that more and more. But yeah, every gift is different, right? I believe your human design is different too. What I feel like that, or what I've seen in the past, is people that have activated channels in the upper region, they see differently, while I don't have any channels defined in the upper region. It's all sacral. So I don't see the way people see into other dimensions. Like my partner, he clearly sees. I do not have that, but all of our gifts are different, and there's no right or wrong. It's just like you have to master yours. And part of mine is that voice field. And it started naturally, right? It was always just like me being in the car singing. That was my release. And I didn't know how much of a release that was until I didn't have that time anymore. Because when I lived in LA, I didn't have my car to just go. I didn't have a US driver's license. I lived with people. So I would catch myself that I couldn't sing anymore. And it was just like something was bottling up. And I didn't realize how much my singing was just release and expression. And the first time my roommate got a car and she went like for holidays or for vacation, she's like, hey, can you park my car? Like, can you park my car daily so it doesn't get towed or whatsoever? And I got into a car, and the first thing I would do is like sing, like just no one hearing me in the middle of the night. And I would sit in this street, like right on Sunset, and I would just sing my heart out. And it's like, you're back, old friend. Fuck. Like, it's like that was me. Everything else was not me. But in that moment where I was alone with my voice, I could recognize my essence again. It's almost like, oh, I'm back home, and I'm getting goosebumps, because your voice is literally that. When your true voice comes out, there's a reconnection with your essence. And it's not mental. You don't have to understand it, but it's something that happens for your body. It's almost like that bridge between you and your soul, wherever your soul may be in the cosmos, if we want to look at it like that. It's now like signaling again. Like you can receive more essence now, you can receive more radiance again. And I didn't realize how powerful my actual voice was. It's clearing for your whole system. It's like it comes from the heart. And the deeper I went into it, the more I could feel my ancestors. It was just like this. When my shamani came through, right, it was this medicine woman that I could hear, and it was just my own exploration. And at first it was super cringe, and at first I'm like, oh, I'm going crazy, but whatever. Right? It's like you have to lose your mind. So there was no boundary for me anymore. There was no holding back. There was no judgment. So I went into whatever my voice wanted to do, like children do, right? Children don't say, oh, this is a made up language, I can't do that. Children sing in made up languages all the time. And so that's basically what I just toned, and whatever word wanted to come through, even though it wasn't English or German, it was just a word that came through, made my body feel good. And I kept doing it and I kept doing it. And this is probably part of my deepest spiritual practice, is my voice. And the emotions that come through, the tears that come through, the clearing that happens afterwards it's miraculous. And that's why anytime I work with a woman, I will bring her back to her voice, even if it's just for a second, even if it's just a little spark of, hey, you might want to go there. And that's for me how light language came through. It's very intimate for me. I don't share my light language, but that's how all of these voices came through. This is how the different lineages came through. And you feel it in your body, right? It's not mental, it's not logical, but that's how I started to play with my voice. And in that, like musicians call it, when you're in the pocket, that's when you're in the channel. And every musician is a channeler, whether they know it or not. But that moment when you're in the flow, in the pocket, and nothing else exists around you, and the whole crew is in one brainwave state, right? That happens when you jam with people, and one is on the guitar, one is singing. There's a conscious field that is shared. That's the pocket. And all of a sudden it just flows. It's because you've entered a different dimension altogether. And that's what happens when you play with yourself and you hit that tone that is so true to you. And the more you do that, the more you clear that channel. And then when you speak, nothing but truth comes out of your mouth. Because once you speak something that isn't your truth, that shuts down, your voice changes, and all of a sudden we can't feel our body. It's like you can feel your body being dissociated. And that's the moment you're starting to be either in a fake persona or a fake voice. So it's powerful, because the more you play with your voice, the more you feel your truth.
You said that your voice connects you to like your soul. I could definitely see our voice. The sound of our voice is actually all of our experiences combined, which I think is so interesting. And so it
Yes,
makes sense.
yo, wow.
It makes sense that our voice would be that channel, that vortex, that like connection to our soul, because now it's getting me to think like, oh, so is our voice not even just the experiences here we have on earth in this lifetime, but is it also accumulation of all of our lives connecting us to our soul?
Oh my God, love. I just got goosebumps, truth bumps all over my body. Oh my God. Yes. Like
I'm
I've
just,
never had that thought. Wow. But what if that voice, it's not me, but it was like the same voice
it's
remained.
all
Like
of you.
that just like fucking hit me. Wow. Wow.
Yeah.
The same voice remained. How beautiful.
I mean, and that's what's connecting you to
Oof.
your ancestors and all of that, because the sound, the frequency, because I always say that the universe doesn't speak a spoken language, because then how would it understand me in America versus somebody in Tokyo? It's more of an energy that it gets. And I wonder if our ancestors connecting with us through our voice is a recognition of some of the patterning in our voice that's come through from many lifetimes and dimensions that they're picking up on and being like, oh, that's my soul sister, or you know what I mean.
Oh my God, love. This is like, wow. It reminds me almost of this one quote really got me, or it's a Japanese proverb or something, but it says that this lifetime we got the face of the person we loved most in our last lifetime. And that just like, it just hits different for me. And I'm even tearing up. I don't know if that's true, but and every time I read these words, I'm just like, there's so much beauty in them. And what you just shared, I had the same reaction. What if this voice, that exact tone, that exact voice has been with me through every existence? And I get to, when I don't fake it, when it's real, I remember, right? I remember who I am. I remember what my essence is. And our voice was given to us to remember. But for that, we have to be able to touch the real voice. And that happens through song to me. Or
I
in
love the way
song,
you
it happens first.
because you like free yourself from even just saying anything, more like just singing is a less invasive way to get to our truth. It's like the gateway. I love that.
Yo, thank you. How precious. That's why we gotta come together,
That's
right?
why
Because
we're
that
here. That's
only
why we come. Oh my goodness, love it. Magic happening in the moment. Hey there, it's Vivian, and I'm briefly interrupting this podcast episode because I'm so excited to announce that we're hosting a manifestation one-day mini retreat in New York City, Sunday, June 2nd. If you're loving this podcast episode, this retreat will be such a treat for you. We'll be manifesting in real time, in person, where we'll move through some of the most powerful manifestation rituals that you'll forever utilize to make quantum shifts and get real results. If this sounds like a hell yes for you, DM me on Instagram at JourneyWithVRD or sign up directly on our website, journeywithvrd.com. We only have 5 spots left, so if this sounds like a hell yes, you're ready to make those shifts, you're ready to go through a day of manifestation, then sign up now. All right. Can't wait to see you there. Let's get back to the episode. Now you're living in Sedona, Arizona. How did you get from Cali to Sedona, Arizona?
many twists and turns again. And it started actually in Hawaii when I did the quantum healing training. And I met my ex-partner there. And he was just very in tune. Again, I did this whole master slave thing. I'm like, you're the guru. I need to learn from you. So our relationship was very much so. He was the spiritual master because he was very tuned in. He's a genius, very special. But it came from the point where I forgot who I was. And I moved in with him and we moved. I lived all over, like where I'm now. I had to visit these different grid points, but I lived in upstate New York, which is very powerful. It's a very powerful state. There's a lot of ancient connection there, a lot of native energy too. And so I lived there and it was a living hell. It was literally like I was in a prison for 2 years. And together we moved back to San Diego. And I was very dependent on him. It was the whole COVID thing happened and I didn't have papers yet. So I was very dependent on him financially as well. And throughout that, I did my work, but because I was so disempowered within myself, I couldn't really hold space for people, or I felt like I was unworthy to hold space for people. And so all I did was basically learn from him and learn to be in my power. And I was so disempowered, and we come back to that voice thing, where sometimes next to him, I couldn't even speak. I would stutter, or I was so disempowered that I literally was frozen. And my voice was like, yo, you're so not in your truth. You can't even speak words right now. We're not going to allow you to speak from that place because what you're experiencing right now is not real. So that was wild for me to not be able to speak literally because I felt so unworthy. It was wild. And then we moved to San Diego and it was abusive as well. It was highly psychological abusive and even spiritually abusive. And I freaking love him, right? Brother, sister, we had to go through this, but it was just very warped. And there was one of these breaking points where he left me in a parking lot and I walked home 3 hours and I was like, Melissa, what are you doing here? Like, look in the mirror, remember who you are and what are you doing here? And that was a decision that I made. And I walked home at night and I felt just there was a power that came back. And the whole way back, like after he left me somewhere in a Whole Foods parking lot and my phone was off, I chanted the Ho'oponopono prayer. There was just like, no, God, I can't do this anymore. I'm not going to do this anymore. And I made a decision and I didn't know what I was going to do. I had no money. I had no car. And I was like, if I have to go back to Germany, that's fine. I will no longer treat myself this way. This is a distortion. I don't know how I got here, but I'm done. And I got home and I made the decision. I'm like, we're done here. I don't know where to go. I don't know what to do, but I'm done. I had no family, no friends in the US. And the next day, I was in a course in a trauma healing mentorship with my teacher. And the next day I turned on her course, or it was a live session Q&A. And she said, hey, I need someone to watch my son in New Mexico. You get free housing, free living, free food, and you get to live with me. And I was like, oh my God. I emailed her Literally an hour later, she's like, I got 32 emails. I didn't even read them, but I opened yours. Let's get on a Zoom call. Literally, I had this experience the night before. The next day, this appeared. And within a week, I was in New Mexico. Like, she lived in a canyon, very remote. And I he drove me there, and it was over after that. And I moved in with her. And she is a business genius beyond anything I've ever met. Like, I witnessed her creating an empire. I witnessed her having $200,000 months. And to be able to be in her field and get to witness that, that was the next pivotal moment. So that's how I got there. And we drove through Sedona on our way there. And I'm like, oh, wow. Like, while he was driving me to New Mexico, I'm like, Sedona, wow, I want to be here. And I heard that word, but I'm like, oh, Sedona, this is it. And while I was in New Mexico with her, learning from her, absorbing her teachings, absorbing her strength also, and being seen by her, that was like really powerful to see the empire she created with 2 children. That there was just so much power in that. And we literally lived in a forest. So I lived with her for almost 6 months. And I remember I met someone in Sedona, and I texted that person, and I'm like, hey, do you know if there's any apartments? I would love to come back to Sedona. Like, that was kind of like, I could see myself living there. And this whole like spiel of, oh, it's so hard to get living places in Sedona, right? She's like, oh, I don't know, it's so hard to live here. And I made some detours. Through the course and through my teacher, I met like-hearted women. And one of them was like, girl, I got you. You don't know where to go next. Come to LA, live with me. Like, it was just wild. And I lived with her. And to make this longer story short, she watched some guys on YouTube, like, talking about like some, like a spiritual bros, basically. And they had yeah, I don't know how else to call it, but they were family, right? Sometimes you see people on YouTube and you're like, you're family. Like, you're just, I feel you. And they had a conference in Sedona, and we wanted to go to Sedona anyway. So we were like, oh, let's go there. And then we got here. Turns out that this person that I watched on YouTube would become my partner, my man. And he saw me, and it was this instant recognition. And I'm just making this really short, but that's how it was. Like, he was like, whoa, where were you? Where were you? Like, come home, mama. Like, come home. And within a month, I moved in. And that's, yeah, that's how I got here.
Wow. What I love about your story is something that is very hard to find. And it's that never have you been like, but how is it going to work out? Like, yes, you said, this is what I need. I'm no longer tolerating this. Yes, you closed every door and said, I'd even go back to Germany. But never did you say, but what if I move in with this man and I have no money and da, da, da? What if I move in with this woman in New Mexico and, whatever, all these different things. There was the doubt was squashed, and you really followed your intuition. You really followed your gut, your will. What's so expanding and inspiring about your story is how you followed the lead. You asked, you recognized the opening, and you walked through it. If you want to manifest anything in your life, there's something in your life, even if you're not crystal clear of what it is, but you know what you don't want and what you're not going to tolerate, you have to rehearse it. Now, it doesn't mean you have to visualize it. It can mean that you speak it and you look in the mirror and you say it. You speak it out loud. Like you said, you chanted, you told the universe, I am not going to accept anything else. And then what you do, after you rehearse it, you've connected with that timeline, with that version where that thing exists, where that manifestation exists. You have a very small window, an opening, where you can take the aligned action and do the thing. That opening is your yes. It's like, out of all odds, this is going to work for you. You just open the portal. Now you must take the aligned action within minutes, or sometimes a day, depending what it is that you're calling in, and step through. And like, the visual for that is Blue's Clues. When Steve is walking into the picture, which is the manifestation, the dimension where that thing exists. And that's really like the energetics behind manifesting. And of course, there's fear around it and a lot of unblocking that people have to do in order to even get to that state, to walk into the new version of themselves, because there's so many things like unattachments to people, places, and things, and fears, and like worries, and blah, 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 all the loops that we've been, carrying for so long. But, you were able in your entire story so far to really decree and declare what you wanted, what you were no longer tolerating. And through that, you rehearsed it by like visualizing, even in the skyscraper, like in the beginning of the story, visualizing what you are no longer going to tolerate. And then you took action. You called in, even if it's calling in the opportunity, that was the aligned action for you. And then saying yes, not doubting the opportunity, going full force. So I love the freedom that you brought to your story where you felt so stuck. You, in essence, were the freedom, where it was the liberation. So now you're living with your partner today and you're in Sedona, Arizona, and you're doing all the things. Talk to us a little bit about, so what you do, your title, who you are now, how you serve humanity, what's your earth mission?
I love the way you perceive things, and it's so healing. Like, that's why we need each other, because what you put into words, I've never looked at it like that. And that's why it's so vital for us to come together. So thank you for giving me that perspective. Because for me, it was never a choice. Like, life forced me into surrender. So it was almost like there is no other choice. Like, life stripped me of all freedom to choose for a while, to see how that really works. Because if I had the freedom to choose, I don't know if I would have done it. But like, even moving to New Mexico, I had no other choice. There was really no other choice. Like with Germany, there was no other choice. So there was also a little bit of the desperation brought me to surrender.
You could have settled. You could have said, you know what, there's nothing, I have to stay with this guy. I have to stay in Germany. I'm not good enough to do all these things. So you did have a
True.
choice, even though for you, it felt like there was no choice because you would not tolerate something that just ripped your soul out of your body. Just for you, it didn't feel like a choice because you would rather the alternative, anything other than losing your soul, your connection to self. So you like, I know so many people listening to this is gonna just be like mic drop. Like, this is just, your story is incredible. And I just want you to also be aware that you did have a choice. And even though it felt like the harder thing was the easier thing, like moving to America and all these things, you did have a choice.
Like, sometimes we take what we are and for granted.
Mm-hmm.
But there is a power in our being. So thank you for that. Yeah. What I do now, or how I would call myself now, is, so I do see myself as a doula for your essence. So whoever comes to me, I'm always about stripping everything that is not you. And I'm really good at detecting that. I'm really good at detecting that, first of all, because cultural, right? It's like, if I'm not indoctrinated in certain things culturally, so I can see clearer what doesn't belong to someone and what is manufactured. And with that, I'm walking someone back to their essence. And apart from that, I do that with whatever is required, right? Whether it's intuitive sessions where we just drop deep, or it's quantum healing, like whatever is needed. I love to work one-on-one and intimate with women. That's my favorite. I love that. I want to bring what I have learned into teachings, because it's, whenever we absorb wisdom, you can never just be the student. It's unbalanced. So for all of us that are absorbing so many lessons, right, that look through life with a lens of life as school, we have to teach. So if you're the student, you always have to be the teacher. If not, it's never going to be balanced and there's no flow of energy. So I told life, for me to teach, I need stability. So I am ready to teach life when you give me stability. So I'm not going to go on YouTube or Instagram unless I am stable, because everything else is a disservice to people and a disservice to myself. And when I arrived in Sedona, I received all of that. I didn't have to worry about rent. I live in a freaking beautiful house right in front of Thunder Mountain. I am in nature. I have everything I need. And that was my go of like, you're ready. You're allowed to teach now. And that's when I started first like having groups in German, like with my German women, because I was still afraid to like speak in English. And so I started with my German women acquaintances from back then that knew me from back then, friends, old friends of mine, not close friends, because I believe that close friends are never the ones that will look at us like we're a teacher, and that's okay. But old acquaintances, and I started these women groups where we would come together and let everything that's fake go, let everything that's not real go. And in these sessions, we brought in so much healing. And I started this in German, and then I started my YouTube channel. So I speak a lot about polarity in relationships, and all the things, right? All the teachings that, all the problems that I had to solve, and I found solutions. I created teachings around that. And so that's what I'm sharing. And currently I'm in a mystery school that is 9 months that is called Rebirth. And that's what I do with women. We go through the energetic system step by step, and we delete the old and we bring in the new. And with that, I see myself as that doula, like giving birth to the new version of you, and whatever that requires. Together, we explore the field, we explore the root chakra, we explore what's here, and we ask questions. So then our field can teach us.
So with your mystery school, with your teachings, how do people find it? What's your YouTube channel name and how do people connect with you?
Yeah, it's Melissa Ayama, and that's how you find me on YouTube. The website is Sedona Goddess. And I always like to say I don't call myself the goddess, but my man literally had this website. His name is Alexander. He had the website reserved for 5 years. He just like was like, oh, that's a dope website name, because Sedona is a goddess energy. Like when you're here, you can feel the strength of, and everyone refers to Sedona as the feminine, but he reserved this website name. And then when I came in, he's like, oh, that was for you. And so I'm like, okay, yeah, I'll take that. And so it's sedonagoddess.com and Melissa Ayama on YouTube.
What is somebody's truth? And what does it feel like to be in your truth?
Hmm. For me, it's a bodily experience. It's like the moment you open your mouth, there's an instant feeling of home. There's a release, like something just got lighter. Like anytime there is a confusing situation, it's only confusing because truth wasn't invited. Truth eliminates all confusion at any point in time. Like I had this with my man, like in a relationship. Sometimes there's just like so much in between the two of you, and all that is needed is a moment of truth where both speak their truth, whether that's like I can't go on like this, or this is really bothering me. So truth is a body experience, and that's something we have to learn. How does truth feel in my body? So for me at this point, I know when I'm holding back, I know when I'm untruthful, I know when I'm interacting with people, and I'm not like if I don't feel like this, something's not in truth, right? If my body isn't just relaxed and I'm like, here I am, take it all, like all of the good, all of the bad, all of the ugly, that's just me. Like I'm chill, right? There's like the sense of like, I'm chill, I'm good, I'm speaking my truth. I don't have to fake, I don't have to cover anything up. And that release is energetic, you can feel it. And so I would have to, that's why I work one-on-one, because sometimes it's hard to define that in general. You have to explore that for yourself. And a lot of people beat around the bush, right? This whole thing, I'm not a polite person. I had to let that go because politeness isn't real. Politeness doesn't exist in our truth. There's just like, this is what it is. Like, yes, you can say something through the flower, but a lot of us have been taught to be very polite, which is kind of like the gateway for fakeness. And people get offended very easily. So I don't surround myself with people that get offended really easily, because someone who's in their truth will never get offended. Like my real people, they never get offended. So no one has to hold their word, right? We just speak what's on my heart right now. If I'm pissed, I'm pissed. And I can say it, I can swear. That doesn't make me less sacred. It's just what's happening right now. Some energetics or some forces can only be translated through swears, or like there's a ancient fire burning, and whatever that requires, you have to let it out. And for that, it's also important to surround yourself with people who can handle their truth, even if it's ugly, right? People who don't get offended, people who are just like, oh, I'm going to sit with that. And sometimes say, oh, I have to leave the room. But if anyone is like, you can't say that, or how dare you say that, they're a prison to your truth. And so it's important that we're around people that can handle our truth, whatever it may be.
There's so many layers to getting to your truth, especially when it comes to being fearful of who you really are when you're trying so hard to show up for other people. And so many people don't even have the awareness that they're trying so hard to show up for other people. To even be able to have the awareness of like, okay, wait, I want to be myself and do what feels good for me. It takes so much courage because we're conditioned to not let people down. We're conditioned to feel like other people are always going to know what's best for us. We're conditioned to serve from a get-go, to work for other people. And I think there's like this connection, this energetic play between getting into your worth, your power, your spirituality, and working for yourself. The moment
Mm-hmm.
you have that awareness of like, let me do things that make me happy because I only have my life to live. Nobody's thoughts, opinions, judgment matter. Really, they don't
Mm-hmm.
matter when it comes to manifesting. The only thing that matters when it comes to living your life is your own opinions, judgments, and thoughts. Because if you, for 1 second, hold on to somebody else's thoughts, opinions, or judgments, what you've just done is give your entire experience of reality to somebody else. You just put your life in their hands and you did not come here to live for anybody else. And that's what it means. Like when you're in your truth, you're able to say, I'm going to do this because it's what feels good for me. I'm not doing this to spite you. I'm doing this because it lights me up with pure love and pure joy and pure bliss. And I'm not going to take on the shame and the guilt and the pain that this could cause me because we're in friction and because I love you, right? Our family members, we may love, but I'm doing this because I also love me and my happiness, my truth, my bliss. That's what's important for my story and my life that I'm living. Yes, it's very my, but it's also when we're living in our pure bliss and our pure authenticity and our truth, like you said, you're in that stability to serve. And in that case,
Mm-hmm.
you're doing so much good. It's like kind of like the most selfless, selfish thing you could do.
Yes, preach. For sure, preach. And that's also I realized that me being there for other people in the past was kind of manipulative, and I didn't see it like that. But back then, also again, past life, it's Germany. But I was always there for friends, right? I was the one you could call me at 3 a.m. in the morning. Didn't matter if I had to work, I would come over to your place if you needed me. And I would do so many things just to please others. And when I hit that rock bottom, I realized there was no one I could call because no one was strong enough to pull me out of my shit. Who could, right? It was my experience. But I realized that all the times I was there for people, no one could be even there for me now. No one had the capacity to hold space for me or create a space for me. And that's when I realized that all the times where I was so overly there for people, there was a tiny part of me that's like, well, because in case I need them, they will be there for me. And when I realized the moment I really needed someone, no one had the capacity to be there for me, I also realized, what am I doing here? And so that made it really easy to become selfish because a lot of my friends don't get what I'm doing. Like a lot of my friends don't look at me with a sense of, oh wow, you achieved a lot. They feel like I've abandoned them or they feel like I've changed and all of this. So that's okay, right? That's they'll see the truth someday or they won't, which is fine. But now like I became super selfish because like you said, I am here to create generational wealth for me on a financial level, on a spiritual level. I am here to pass something on to my children and their children's children that is so much bigger. And there's nothing more loving than that. There's nothing to me more selfless than that. But I have to, like, success is my North Star, wealth is my North Star on all levels. And with that, I'll be able to help someone else's dreams. And yeah, in the moment, I might have to say no to a freaking party, or I have to say no to someone asking me for a favor. I might have to say no if some of my friends or acquaintances from back then ask me for a free coaching call. I can't do it anymore. I don't have the energy for it because what I'm building will serve you and me in such greater ways that right now it looks like a compromise, or I have to sacrifice certain things for the greater good of my own life. So we'll get good at being selfish because we know how selfless it really is. But that, takes a journey, or it takes, like you said, experiences.
And I feel so like grateful that we've been able to really talk about honesty and truth and who that is within who we are, because, you know, we're brought up where like we don't speak about wanting money. Like to want money is bad, or like to want to be happy and not take everybody with you is bad. And it's like, no, there's a misconception there. We need to feel good on a molecular and cellular level in order to build good. And I think that the earth is changing from where, like, not, I could go on a whole tangent here about this, but like food, for example, like, oh, I'm just going to put out this instant ramen that's going viral on TikTok right now because it's going to make me so much money. And then, like, even though that person might have good intentions with their money, they're harming so many people who are eating those chemicals. The food that's not, there's not one real ingredient in there. When we do something so holy, like
Mm-hmm.
what you're doing, like what you're working with people, you're like literally what you're doing with people is you're removing layers and layers of lives that just they've grown out of, like layers of clothing that just don't fit anymore. And you're like guiding them into their truth and this whole new world where they too could serve. You're like taking the seed and you're growing it, them being the seed, and you're like giving them all the medicine that they need
Mm-hmm.
in order to flourish into this beautiful tree that they're about to turn into. That's so much more holy, right? And that has such a bigger energy, a greater energy that's healing for the entire earth than what was done in the past, these fast making money things. Instead, I think the earth is shifting into this realm where we're building from the ground up with intention. We're
Yeah.
exchanging energy with intention and so much
God,
goodness behind
absolutely.
it.
Especially for the, we could call it third wavers, or the wave of people that come here with a different DNA encodement. A lot of us are not wired for old kind of wealth or richness. It's not what we're wired for. That's why creating sustainable wealth is so multidimensional, right? Before that, maybe you could hustle, maybe you could drop ship on Amazon or whatever, right? And make money really quick. For a lot of us, it does not work that way because we're, like you said, meant to work on foundational levels. We're here to create systems. We're here to create a whole new infrastructure for what life really is. And there is no quick money. It's our life purpose. And with that, the wealth we're bringing in has such a different vibration. But that's also why there's so much fine tuning, right? Because it's almost like, let's just get our hustle on. It doesn't work that way for those of us with high encodements. There's too many superficial, or not superficial, but too many layers where we have to remove the superficial. And it's mastery. It takes mastery. And it's like I always say, I'm here to reverse engineer wealth. It's so hard for me, or it has been so hard for me, because I'm really here to fine tune all these tiny steps and all of these limitations so that I can assist someone that comes from a similar background than me. Like, it wasn't meant to be easy for me, and that's all right. It doesn't need to be easy. Like, it's okay. It can be hard. I can handle hard. But it's like literally we are reverse engineering new earth. Like, it exists already. And how do
Yeah.
we bring it onto this physical plane? So it's a whole nother type of wealth, right? It has nothing to do with getting rich quick. I don't give a F about money. It's
Right.
about freedom. It's about my creational freedom. I want to be able to plant my creations onto this physical plane. I want to make the house where I'm living in my frequency. And like, yeah, okay, some might care about fancy handbags. I love clothing, but I don't need it. It might be fun. I'll see, right? But it's about creation. It's bigger than that.
Right. It's like getting back to the why. It's like, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I'm a multidimensional person. Maybe I'll have a nice bag, but also that's not like my motivator. My motivator is
Yeah.
the service I'm providing for others to also be able to get on an intentional level that I'm at. You mentioned, you came in with a lot of hard lessons to learn and a lot of like things that it wasn't bliss and ease from the get-go. And what I've come to learn when we decide to choose this lifetime to come into, we're like really excited and we're like, okay, there's so much I want to do. And like our guides and God and our angels are like, okay, but you're taking on a lot. And you're like, yeah, no worries. I got this. I know I get it. It's going to be hard. I get it. I get it. I get it. But I'm so excited because I know I could do it. Like I know what an impact I'm going to have on the world. I know what an impact I'm going to have on people. I know all these things. And they're like, okay, but you're taking on a lot of stuff, a lot of complex systems and a lot your relationship. Like, are you sure? And you're like, yes, I know what I'm going to learn. And we come here and we get extra guides and we get like maybe our connection with the spiritual world is like a little bit easier to connect to than for others because we've taken on such a big purpose and mission in life. And when we have those moments where we're just like, because I remember like I must have just turned 20, or maybe I was 21. I remember there was a moment I was just like hysterical, crying on my bed. And I'm like, what is my life? Like, what is this? This is not what I signed up for. But I also remembered in that moment that I had the power to just live differently. Like, okay, if I don't like how this feels, let me change that. And it was like almost like flipping the channel on a TV. Like I went through a lot of different things to find my channel, to find my way and to fall in love with myself and my life. And like you, if you weren't capable of coming out on the other side, and then, like you said, your purpose, teaching it to so many other people from a similar background who have gone through things that are just like, what the heck is this? You wouldn't have had this mission and this vision. You wouldn't have been given this life. And so, just for anybody listening who feels like your life is so chaotic and you can't seem to catch a break, just know that that is the biggest gift. That is the biggest lesson because what it's giving you is all your gifts to get to where you're meant to be, all your gifts for your purpose and the way that you're going to serve. You think you can't catch a break, your life feels like it's so chaotic. I love that for you because you don't know what's on the other side of this. Like the best thing, like, oh, like you can't find yourself. Good. That means that who you are is so special that you need to get on that frequency to even meet her. Thank you for sharing all this with everyone.
Thank
Oh,
you.
Hey, if you like this podcast episode, please download it, give us a nice review, and follow us on Instagram at Journey with VRD to get all the latest and the greatest updates. Till next week.